Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Breen, and today I'm talking about Kmart. Do you remember Kmart? I hope so. If not, let me tell you a story. I don't know, 5 or 6 years old, and my parents didn't have a lot of money, and Mom took us to the Kmart to pick out our clothes for the school year because I was starting school this year, and she was going to do a layaway. So we walked around the store trying on clothes, and Mom always she did 2 big layaways a year at Kmart back when they did layaway. And she would do one layaway in the summer where she would buy our school clothes and school supplies. We would get one new outfit for the year, and we would get our book bag. We would get our Trapper Keeper thingamabobber. It wasn't always a Trapper Keeper. It was usually the knockoff. So it wasn't always the 5-star one, but it was our, binder folder thingy. We'd get our one notebook, our one box of pencils, our one rubber eraser, and that was supposed to last us the entire school year. And I just remember picking out, my clothes, a pair of jeans, a t-shirt that I thought looked cool. And Mom made me put the t-shirt back, and she said pick something out, like a button-up shirt or like something, like that. It wasn't that I couldn't wear t-shirts to school. So it really wasn't about we couldn't wear t-shirts to school. It was our first day of school, we had to dress our best. And whatever outfit we bought was also going to be our picture day outfit. So it had to be nice clothes. And we did this every school year for several years. Now, this is in the late 80s to early 90s. Kmart didn't have grocery stores. Department stores didn't have food in them. This was before Big K. This was back when Kmart's weren't very big stores. Not like your Walmart or Target is today. These were small. Take your Target, cut it in half. That's a Kmart. Very small stores back in the day. They did have really good electronics aisles. They did have really good sporting goods sections, home decor, automotive section. They had the garden center. They had like the home goods department. They had boys' clothes, girls' clothes, men's clothes, women's clothes, baby stuff. They had Olin Mills photography studios in them. And they had the little food court out front. And they had the 1 hour photo, or not 1 hour photo, but the photo development center in the electronics department. Kmart's were a good place to buy cassette tapes and CDs. They were a good place to buy VHS tapes, movies. They were a good place to buy toys. We got toys at Kmart. They were a good place to buy, like, your home goods, your blender, your lamps, They didn't really sell much in the way of furniture back in the day, like, IKEA-type furniture, a bookshelf in a box. They didn't really do that back in the day. They did have, like, a sporting goods section where they would sell, like, bikes and, guns and, stuff like that, fishing rods and stuff like that. But they weren't like, they weren't very big stores. So like your toy aisle, you had baby toys, girls' toys, boys' toys, and then you had outdoor toys, like footballs and Nerf guns and stuff like that. So you had like 4. That was it. That was all they had for toys. And then they had, like board games and coloring books and stuff on the end cap, on the back wall. Kind of, sort of how they do it today, but more on a more condensed scale. I mean, department stores do it today, not Kmart's, because they don't exist anymore. In the 90s, Kmart tried to expand, and they created Big K. Big K added a sort of grocery store, more like a dollar store grocery aisle. So they had like snacks down one aisle. They had the soda pop aisle. You know, they had like the canned goods aisle, you know, things like that. It wasn't a full-on grocery store like what Walmart would do or even Target today, but it was, you know, a little bit more of a than what a dollar store does. So it was like almost a grocery store, but not quite. Kmart got into some financial trouble in the late 90s, early 2000s, and they ended up merging with Sears, who were also in financial trouble at the time in 2003, and just slowly went on the decline. Now, I worked at the local Kmart when I was 18 years old in 2002. Actually, I was 20 years old, now that I think about it. Was I 18? How old was I in 2002? I think I would have been 20. Because I was born in 82. So I would have been 20 years old. Anyways, all right, so I was 20 years old working at the Kmart. And working at the register, working in electronics, just working wherever they needed me. And I loved it because I got an employee discount. And I got to, you know, see the stuff that was in the stock room. So I got to stock things. So if I saw something I really wanted, I'd hide it. You know, if it was a toy, I'd hide it in like housewares behind like, you know, plants, house plants or something. Not house plants, but like, I don't know, just I would hide it so that when payday rolled around, I could go find it, and it was usually still where I left it and buy it. I was sneaky. I did this a lot. The last time I went into a Kmart was in 2018, and this was right before they went on their big decline where they just like closed up pretty much the rest of their stores. And that Kmart, when I went into it in 2018, was a Dollar General with a Kmart sign out front. It was not a Kmart. There was no electronic department. There was no sporting goods. There was no clothing aisles, nothing. It was just a fucking dollar store with a Kmart sign out front. And I was like, dear fucking God, what happened to this store? Kmart was pretty cool back in the day, especially in the 90s, because they had the starter brand of clothes, which were pretty fucking cool. They were a poor person's Tommy Hilfiger, basically. Similar designs, but for poor people. And they also had, after they merged with Sears, they had Craftsman tools and Kenner appliances. And for a while, they had the Martha Stewart collection. But then she got in some hot water, and I don't know if they kept her stuff or not. Because I was already, like, not shopping at Kmart anymore by then because there weren't any Kmarts left where I was living. And they were getting harder and harder to find. Now, if you watch some YouTubers reminisce about Kmart, and if you see movies or documentaries or things, a lot of people make a big deal about the blue light special. I'm going to be honest with you. They didn't do the blue light special every day, like some people want you to remember they did. It was something they did like just like randomly on rare occasions. It was not an everyday thing. It was one of those things that it was like sometimes they did it, sometimes they didn't. But when they did it, you were like, oh shit, I got to go check it out. But like, I don't ever remember being in a Kmart during the blue light, when a blue light special was going on. All the time I was in a Kmart, I never saw a blue light special. So it may have been something they did more back in the day, perhaps. Or maybe our store just didn't do it enough. I don't know. But for me, what made Kmart stand out was the layaway. Now, back in the 90s, 80s and 90s, Walmart also did layaway, and so did Target. Target was the first to get rid of it. Target dropped layaway like a bad habit sometime in the 90s, and they said, nah, we're just not dealing with this shit anymore. Walmart replaced layaway in the early 2000s when they launched their website and they came up with the site to store, which I don't know if site to store is even a thing anymore, because now it's been replaced with like the self checkouts and the what do you call it, the grocery pickups and stuff like that. Kmart didn't stick around long enough to do grocery pickups, and they did have self-checkouts at the one I worked. I was working there when we got them, and it was a big nightmare because everyone was scared of it. And our big complaint was, why should I do your job? A lot of people would tell me that. Why should I do your job? And I'm like, I just work here. I don't make these decisions. I was a fucking kid making minimum wage, part-time, 15 hours a week. I'm like, don't yell at me. I don't make decisions. Now, Kmart was one of my first jobs. So I have a lot of fond memories shopping Kmart, but I also have a lot of fond memories working there. I did not stick around in the retail industry for very long. Kmart was a sour experience for me. And so I would work at a couple of gas stations, and later on I'd work at a Sears. And then I walked away from retail and said, never again. That's one of the reasons why I went to college, was so I didn't have to work retail. Because I'm pretty sure if I did, I'd kill myself. I'm sorry if you work retail. I'm legit, my heart goes out to you. Because people suck. I know they do. And I'm sorry. If you can make it work, good for you. That means you're a good person, and I respect you. I cannot do it. I have borderline personality disorder and social anxiety disorder. I cannot regulate my emotions. And so when shithead Karens are yelling at me, I yell back and I get fired. So I have mad respect for anyone who can make a career out of working retail. I really do. You guys are awesome. All of you. You're awesome. Kmart went on the decline in the late 90s. They were the shit in the 80s. They were still pretty good until around 97-ish, 98, and then they started to go on the decline. At first, it was like they just weren't selling as high-quality product as they had been used to. Their toy aisle was thinning out. They were still selling video games, but they weren't keeping up with the industry. Like in 98, 99, when the Dreamcast came out, our Kmart didn't sell the Dreamcast when it came out. They were still selling Saturn, PS1, and 64. They were still selling Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, our Kmart. They did sell PS2. They did not sell Xbox or GameCube. They were just not going to do it. I don't know if that was a Kmart policy, if no Kmarts did, but I know our Kmart did not sell Nintendo. They sold Game Boy, GBA stuff. They did not sell GameCube. They did not sell Xbox. They just didn't bother with it. It was just PS2, PS1, and then some old stock that they just couldn't get rid of. They were still selling Sega Genesis games at my Kmart at least as late as 2004, because I remember seeing them as late as 2004. And they never clearanced the motherfuckers. 2004, they were selling Sega Genesis cartridges $40. That's why they took them forever to sell them, because they wouldn't clearance the motherfuckers. They were just like, hey, whatever. That's not to say Kmart never did have sales or they never did do clearance, because they did. They had, like I said, they had the blue light special from time to time. And they did do sales like everybody did. They did the big sales. And they used to, back in the day, they would price match their competitors. But who they considered a competitor was shrinking as the years went by. And after a while, they stopped considering Walmart a competitor. Because, look, we can't compete. We're not going to price match Walmart. We can't. When they got to the point where they stopped price matching Walmart, I think was the end of them. I think that was what did them in. Because they couldn't afford it. They couldn't price match Walmart. No one can. So I think after a while, I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure they just stopped price matching altogether. Another thing that was a big blow was when they did finally stop doing layaway. That was a big blow. because I think they were the last store to do layaway, to do away with it. I have a lot of fond memories of Kmart, especially the electronics department. Um, like I said, one of the things I liked about Kmart was the fact that as time went on, they had fewer people shopping there. So stuff would sit on the shelves for longer. So you could go into a Kmart and find older stuff after a while. You could find older video games, older toys that hadn't sold, older movies on VHS and DVD or Laserdisc that hadn't sold, CDs that hadn't sold. So Kmart for a while, till about 2006 or 7, was a good place to get like old stock. But then they started they got to a point around 2006 or 7. I remember this pretty clearly. They just stopped restocking stuff. And you would walk into Kmart and they'd have empty shelves. Sometimes they would have empty shelves where like the shelving was taken down, and they would just have like shelving stacked up, just stacks of shelving where they had disassembled it and they had nothing to put on the shelf, so they just disassembled the shelf and said fuck it, and they gave up. So they had a really bad image problem. Back in the 80s and 90s, they kept up appearances, but like in the later 2000s, they didn't repave their parking lots. They didn't repaint their signs. They didn't upgrade their cash registers. They didn't repaint the stores, put in new lights, new tiles, nothing. They did no maintenance on the stores whatsoever. So you could, in 2008, 2009, you could walk into a Kmart and it looked like you were in 1995 all over again. Kmart never really embraced the internet like they should have. They had a website and they tried to sell stuff online. So did Sears. But they sucked at it. And I never bought anything on their website. And it just, in the end, Kmart fell apart. They just didn't know what the fuck they were doing. If I move to another random city, wherever I move to next, and they happen to have a Kmart, there's a high probability I'll shop there for whatever I can afford from time to time, just out of nostalgia. But like, I'm not going to seek out a Kmart. I don't even know if there's any left, to be honest. And I'm not going to take a road trip to go looking for a Kmart. I'm just going to wash my hands of them and say, I miss them, but good riddance at the same time. Stay cool.